This is the Ask a Photographer podcast, answering your photography-related questions about general photography, workflow, editing, business, and marketing. To submit a question, go to beblino.com/ask. Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. My name is Mike, and I'm from beblino.com. Today's question comes from Ian, and Ian's asking, any ideas on what I can do to challenge myself in my photography? Hey Ian, thanks for your question. And this is actually a really, really good question for anyone, especially for anyone that's photographed for a while. You know, we photograph our type of photography or genre of photography for, well, all the time basically. And I guess we can kind of get a little bit stagnant. So this is why I find this question really, really good, because we should be challenging ourselves every now and again. And that's how we can grow as photographers. So just a few things to think about, Ian. And the first one would be to try a different genre. Okay, so if we're photographing street photography, well then do something completely different, like landscape photography. That's so far removed from that type of photography that you will learn something, especially how light falls on objects. Maybe try architectural photography, or even if you're always outdoors photographing, get inside and do something like still life, or product photography, or real estate photography, something completely different. So that's one thing you can try. Another thing would be to limit your equipment. You get you hear a lot of people using walk around lens like a 50mm and a camera body, and that's it. And they're using their feet to zoom in, and I think that's a really, really good thing. You don't need to purchase the equipment. If you've got a zoom, that's perfectly fine. Just set it on one focal length and just don't touch it, and just use your feet to zoom, and that would be a very similar thing. Other thing would be maybe limiting your shutter speed, or limiting your ISO. That's a couple of things you can try there. Another thing would be put yourself in less than favorable conditions. So if you're always photographing in a very well-lit environment, put yourself in a condition where, it makes you think about where you're going to put your subject, or how you're going to illuminate the area. Are you going to get some flashes that you can potentially bounce off the walls to illuminate your subject, or are you going to have, put them closer to, say, a window or something, something a little bit different. Another thing would be to try a project. Now, you would have heard people doing 365-day projects. These are good, but I just think that a whole year is a really, really long time, and you've got to be really dedicated to do that. So I think starting off something slow, like maybe a day, go to the city, catch a bus, train, ferry, whatever it is to get you there. So once you're there, spend the whole day, start from the beginning of the day to the end, and photograph something that's of interest. It could be maybe standing on a corner and just photographing people walk by and just seeing what you get. That's another thing. Could be maybe bringing attention to an organization, and maybe do a day in a life, or a week in a life, or a month in a life, that type of thing. So you build up a series of photos that you can document how it could be an organization that helps people. And you can present the photos to them later, and maybe make a book, something like that. I think that's a really good way of challenging yourself and thinking a little bit out of the box. The other thing would be to recreate old photographs. We always look at these photographs from some of the greats, and you think to yourself, well, how did they light that photo? Why did they put their subject there? And if we were to do the same thing, but maybe make a little change to it, how will that change the photo? Would it be better? Would it be worse? That's a good way of challenging yourself. Now, the other way of challenging yourself would be to shoot in black and white. Most modern cameras, digital cameras these days, you can set your camera to black and white. Now, if you set it to JPEG, it's going to embed the black and white into the JPEGs. So, you can, of course, maybe set it to RAW, and then on the back of the screen, you'll see black and white, your black and white images. And you can, what I like about black and white is there's the contrast between light and dark, and you can, really focus on a subject by using the contrast between light and dark, and just seeing how that plays off the type of photography that you photograph. If you do, of course, want to have black and white photos and also the color version, shoot JPEG and RAW, and that way you'll have both. So you'll have the JPEGs, which are black and white, and then the RAW if you happen to want to make it into a color photo. And just lastly, is limiting the amount of photos that you're photographing. So, you would have heard people, go and buy a film camera so they can limit their exposures to 24 or 36. You can do a similar thing with a digital camera by getting a smaller memory card. If you photographed for a while, you would have had some memory cards that could be in a drawer. And, set it to the highest or the biggest file size that your camera does, so a RAW format in large. And, you probably only will get maybe 20, 30 or even 50 photos. Limit yourself that way. But also another way, while you're doing that, you could potentially put maybe a post-it note on the back, or just, black it out with some tape so you don't see the screen. And that way you can, really hone in on your exposure, the way you expose and compose a photo, and just see the results you get later. And just lastly, to bring it all together, there's no reason why you can't incorporate all these different things into one, or even do a couple of them at the same time. So, for instance, if you're doing a project and shooting only in black and white, or maybe only limiting your photos that you're taking, the same thing applies with the others. If you're doing a different type of genre, maybe putting yourself in very less than favorable conditions, and try to challenge yourself that way and see how well do you really know your camera. So yeah, thanks Ian, that's a top question actually. I really like that one. So I hope that helps, and I'd really like to hear what you come away with that. If you have a question that you'd like featured on the show, go to biblino.com/ask to submit your question. I'd love to hear what you think of the show by going to iTunes or Stitcher and giving me a review and a rating. And don't forget to subscribe so you get notifications of new episodes. Thanks for listening. Until next time, get out and take more photos. Oh look, it's a cat in front of a sunset.